Hi, today I want to build a rack using Drift that gets us some of those sort of chiptune sounds from the sort of 80s, 90s consoles, Commodore 64, etc. Just want to have a look, see what we can actually get out of Drift in that direction. Let's have a quick listen then. Then I'll show you how the rack works and, as always, how you can put it together yourselves. So it's quite a simple rack, and it's just really a bit of fun. I just wanted to see if it was possible to get those kind of chiptune sounds using Drift. Let's just open up the rack quickly. They tend to be based around high-speed arpeggiations, because back in the day they didn't have the number of voices and just the way they had to generate the tones on the old Commodore 64 with the SID chip and things like that. It's very simple stuff, and it was a lot of ingenuity and creativity to create the music that they made back in those days. So anyway, as I say, it's based around an arpeggiator. We can switch the arpeggiator off if we want to and just have the individual tones. Let's close this. We have a chord which gives us then, if we just strum this, gives us another 3 notes afterwards, and it's my understanding, I'm not an expert on chiptunes, my understanding was that's what was happened, that the notes were played in rapid succession after each other to get that sort of arpeggiated sound, this kind of sound. So I've used the chord function here to emulate that, so that we go down to a very slow speed, put the strum on. You will see that when we play, let's turn that off. When a note is played, then another 3 notes are played afterwards, and they're strummed. 1, 2, 3. We can adjust here with the controls in the rack. We have controls over how these notes shift. We can turn them off if we want, so we put these all on 0. Get on 0, there we go. So we just have the note being played here in the MIDI clip. I can introduce then the first strum. You see it lighting up. I can introduce the second. We go 7. And then the third. And now, if I drop them and play them as a chord, we don't really get a chord because this is set as a mono instrument here. If we look at the voices here, I've set this to mono, the mode is mono on Drift. But if we then arpeggiate them, then we effectively start to get that high-speed playing of those notes, which gives that kind of pseudo chord effect. Very famous. Here we go. That's all we're doing. We can open this up, we can play with this to get some different variation. We can also change the transposition range for the arpeggiator here. So they go to much higher notes. Also some variation. So that's how these tones are generated. Drift has a single oscillator running here. I'll get into this a little bit more in the build, but we have it set to mono. We have the LFO running in FM mode here, 1-to-1, so it's modulating here the pitch mod here of this oscillator, so we can get these FM tones. Here is the ratio, and we can change this down to ratios that work very well, or inharmonic ratios. 0.5, that's nice tones. 1, 2, but anything kind of in between, you'll find your inharmonic ratios. We have, this back to 1, control over the amount of FM. Down a little. We go mad. So we can control the FM here. We have control over the length, the decay of the tone, small amounts of control over that. Then we have bit depth. We can crunch it up a little bit. We have a filter here with an envelope. So we have a lot of envelope use here. So that's working here. We also have the wave shape itself, which perhaps if we just go to drift here, you'll see we can change the shape of the wave. Square, pulse, we've got a little bit of control over the shape. Not a great amount. I restricted that quite strongly so that it didn't go into sort of non-chiptune sounds, if you like. So yeah, we can control the wave shape. As you see, we can control the speed of the arpeggiator. What else do we have? So we have that. We have the style. We can also look at our arpeggiator. We can change how the arpeggiator is played back. I think we've done everything. Filter, we have, yes, on off with the up, and then I say, and finally we have the possibility to simply randomize this. Might have to play with some of the FM ratios a bit. See what we get again. Sometimes you get some interesting results. I say sometimes. Let's open that one up. So you can have a little bit of fun with that. Get some inspiration. Don't know why it keeps putting decay away at the bottom. Here we go. A bit better. Typically it's the decay or the frequency you have to adjust it. And yeah, I've made some snapshots here because this is a rack. You can't save these to drift. They're all connected. You could save the tone, of course, as a drift preset here, but you won't have any of the redux. You won't have any of the arpeggiation, things like that. So I've done it here with snapshots. Okay, what else? I think that's pretty much it. That's what we've got going on. So the arpeggiator generates these rhythms. Then we have the additional notes added to make these pseudo chords. Then we have drift generating our tone, and finally at the back we have a method of bit reduction here. Okay, so I think the best thing is just to show you how to put it together. It's very simple. I think we'll play out on Just Mad. Okay, let's have a look how it's put together. You'll need an instrument rack. Find that instrument racks here. just drag that onto your MIDI track here. I've kept my original rack just so that I have the names. You'll end up with 6 here, say macro 1, macro 2, just rename them. You can use my namings, of course, or you can generate your own, whatever. But this is the beginning. Then we're going to need, of course, some effects. We'll need the arpeggiator here from MIDI effects. We drop that in. We're also going to need the chord effect. Drop that into the rack as well. Then we will be needing drift. And finally the redux, which is an audio effect. Here we go, redux. Just drop that on the end. I always have on the main, I always have a limiter just for info. You can drop a limiter onto the main channel when you play around with these kind of things, just in case you get some, strange frequencies or tones, volumes, etc. Okay, so here we go. It's very, very simple to set up, actually. It's a nice quick rack. The first thing we'll set up then, we'll map, maybe we should go through here. The arpeggiator, we need to set some settings here. We need to set this to 3 steps. Then we need to set the gate here to 100%. We can now make a few settings on drift itself. We can deactivate this oscillator here. I've not used the noise either. I know it's used in Chiptune a lot, but I just didn't have enough macros to integrate it, so I've switched that off. We have to set this here to mono instrument. Let's just have a look. I think the LFO we need to set to 1:1 to get the FM modulation of the pitch. We need to set here in the pitch mod, we need to set this to LFO so that we can modulate the pitch here. And I think the rest is simply mapping. The sustain we are reduced down to 0, the attack also, and the release and decay we will map. I think that's everything. Okay, so let's just map these very quickly. So we have, firstly we have the speed, which is the rate here. We have the transposition distance, this is this here. Then we have the style here. The strum function on chord here. Then we want shift 1, 2, and 3. So shift 1 here, 2, and 3. Then we activate the ARP on or off with this button here. Map that. Now we can close this up. That's all done. That's done. Some settings on drift. We need the wave of oscillator 1 here. The shape, this control here. The bit depth from redux, which now I've mapped both of these here. So I've taken the rate and the bit depth as well. I've mapped them both, and you'll see that in the constraints when I put a picture up of the constraints here. You'll see that that's set in that manner. Then we need the FM modulation, which is the pitch modulation here. That's the modulation amount. And the ratio is the ratio here from the LFO. For the decay, I've mapped both the decay and the release, and I say that's another constraint issue here. I've just added a little bit of release as you turn the dial so that you get a little bit of release, not too much. And then finally we have the filter low pass frequency here. Did that map? Let's try that again. And the envelope at the bottom here for envelope 2, so we'll map that here. Okay, so that's everything set up. Now we've got some constraints we have to put in here. I'll simply put this screenshot up. I'll leave the screenshot up and you can punch them in yourselves. Okay, so once you've got all the constraints set up, it should now work. You'll notice here I switched around with the style. I made this random first and up here. I just literally rotated them round so that the dial works in the correct manner. But okay, let's try it out, see if everything works. We can close our mapping, just choose something simple here. Let's try that one. Okay, let's try another one. Seems to be working okay. Yep. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. As always, I hope this is useful for someone who can make use of it. And thank you for watching. My name's Andrew. I'll see you in the next one, I guess. Take care. Thank you.